Imagine waking up every single day just a little bit smaller than you were the day before, having no idea why, no idea when it stops, and no idea if it ever will. By the end, you get so small that insects start to hunt you. We open with a middle-aged man named Paul swimming in the sea like he does most mornings, when he notices a strange ominous funnel forming in the sky above him. What he doesn't notice is a ring of tiny bubbles quietly circling around his body underwater before disappearing without a trace, which honestly is the kind of detail you only catch on a second watch and immediately feel unsettled by. He finishes his swim and heads back to his coastal home like nothing happened. On May 2nd, Paul goes to work running his own shipbuilding company, checking in on his crew who are racing to complete an order that could make or break the entire business. After a long day he drives home to his wife Elise and daughter Mia, and from the outside they look like the picture-perfect happy family. That evening the kitchen faucet stops working, so Paul heads down to the basement with Mia to fix the boiler while their cat Tofu gets left outside the door because there's a fish tank down there he might go after. Mia gets startled by a spider and begs her dad to kill it, but Paul refuses, explaining spiders actually help by eating mosquitoes and flies. Remember that line, because it becomes a lot more relevant later. The two play a silly monster game together, they head upstairs for dinner, the family dances in the living room, and after Mia goes to bed Paul and Elise share a quiet, loving night together. This is peak domestic bliss, and if you know anything about how these movies work, that peace is not going to last. On May 5th, Paul takes a shower and notices the shower head seems higher than usual. He shrugs it off. Then his shirt feels a little too big, so he grabs a different one without thinking twice. At work that day, payment on the big order gets delayed again, which stresses him out badly, but Mia still manages to get a bedtime story and a piggyback ride out of him that night, because even stressed dads show up for their kids. By May 7th, all of his clothes are hanging off him and he has clearly lost weight fast enough to genuinely scare him. He visits a doctor and gets hit with a number that stops him cold. He is now 176 centimeters tall despite being 180 centimeters since he was 18 years old. The doctor waves it off as age and stress, nothing to worry about. Paul is not buying that explanation for a second, and honestly, neither should we. Things escalate fast. His work helmet becomes too big. He can't sleep. He starts working out just to feel like he's doing something productive about a problem nobody can explain. On May 20th, the shower situation gets worse. His wedding ring literally slides off his thinning finger, and when he meets Elise that day both of them are stunned to realize she is now visibly taller than him. They rush to the hospital together, doctors run every test imaginable, and the results come back completely normal except for one undeniable fact: his entire body is shrinking proportionally. No explanation, no diagnosis, just a man getting smaller by the day. Fed up with pointless testing, Paul checks himself out and goes home. The shrinking doesn't stop. Once he reaches the size of the family cat, Elise makes the heartbreaking decision to put Tofu outside permanently, because the same cat that used to curl up on the couch is now a genuine predator to her own husband. By June 30th, Paul has shrunk to about 40 centimeters and finds himself home alone when Tofu spots him through the window. Realizing the danger, Paul bolts and hides under a bed just as the front door opens, only to discover it's a realtor showing the house to potential buyers, casually explaining to the guests that the owner is selling because her husband disappeared and the memories got too heavy. Paul is sitting right there under that bed hearing his own life described as a tragedy in the past tense. When Elise gets home he confronts her furiously about selling the house without telling him, and she breaks down explaining she had no choice. He refuses to see more doctors, and without his income the mortgage simply cannot be paid. Paul insists he doesn't want to be treated like a lab rat and doesn't consider himself sick, completely missing that his family is drowning in a crisis he refuses to acknowledge as real. On July 5th, Mia moves her tiny father into a dollhouse where he can actually function safely, and Paul tries to keep things light, dancing with one of her dolls to make her laugh. But when Mia wants to play their old monster game and lets out an excited scream, the sound is now loud enough to physically hurt his tiny eardrums. She immediately feels terrible and apologizes. That night Paul climbs into bed using his wife's hand as a literal mountain to scale, which is such a small physical detail but says everything about how far this has gone. By July 10th, getting around the house has become genuinely dangerous, so Paul builds himself a tiny grappling hook out of fishing tackle. That's when Tofu sneaks in through a small gap in the door, and Paul, in a full panic trying to escape, trips over his own hook and injures himself. Bleeding, he grabs a sewing needle for protection and sprints for the dollhouse, but the cat chases him down until Paul barely escapes through a crack in the basement door. The cat swipes at him one final time, sending Paul tumbling down the stairs into a trash bin. Elise comes home, finds his bloody shirt on the floor, and searches the basement calling his name. Paul is screaming for her from inside the trash bin the entire time, but she can't hear him over her own panic. When Tofu shows up at that exact moment, Elise assumes the absolute worst, that the cat killed her husband, and walks away devastated. Paul is left completely alone in a basement, presumed dead by his own family, and that is genuinely one of the most gut-wrenching moments in the entire film. After a full day trapped in that bin, Paul crafts new clothes and climbs out to explore the basement, arming himself with the fallen needle. He hears a spider nearby and rushes to the leaking boiler for water. The next morning he hears movement upstairs and tries desperately to get attention, even overhearing Mia begging to search the basement for him while Elise refuses to let her go down. Refusing to give up, Paul finds chalk and writes his own name on the basement floor in giant letters, a genuinely brilliant plan with exactly one fatal flaw: nobody actually comes downstairs to see it. Hungry, Paul discovers a mousetrap baited with cheese, fights off ants swarming it, disarms the trap with a dropped nail, and eats. A spider appears and terrorizes him until he scares it off with noise. He then spends serious time and effort soaking through a cardboard box with a water-soaked rag to create an entry point, eventually finding a box of matches he physically cannot reach. Unable to move a book blocking his path, he barricades himself in for the night. By July 15th, Paul hears his wife on the phone confirming the house sale is finalized and they'll be moving soon. Realizing there's genuinely no point waiting anymore, he heads for the wine cellar, pokes a hole in a cork with his needle, and drinks straight from a thimble. The alcohol makes him violently sick almost instantly, and that's when he notices the spider watching him, except now it's grown massive compared to him. Paul grabs his needle and actually climbs the aquarium to challenge the spider directly, but gets startled and falls straight into the tank. In the water, surrounded by his daughter's goldfish, he has this strange peaceful moment remembering his old ocean swims. Before climbing out and pouring fish food for the goldfish, the spider finds him again in his hiding spot, waiting like a predator in the dark. Paul strikes with the needle and runs, hiding behind a bookcase, but the spider corners him against the wall. In pure desperation he grabs a wooden splinter and drives it straight into one of the spider's eyes, wounding it badly enough that it finally retreats when Paul screams at it. This is the moment everything shifts, because the man who once refused to kill a spider for his daughter is now fighting one for his life, and that quiet callback is genuinely one of the smartest pieces of writing in this entire film. Paul manages to light a match using scraps of paper and warms himself by a tiny flame next to Mia's toy soldier, admitting out loud how much he misses his daughter and asking the soldier to tell her he loves her and he's still alive, just in case that message somehow finds its way to her. By July 20th, Paul is still fighting to survive, refusing to accept whatever fate has planned for him. He hears footsteps and runs to get attention, but the sheer volume of a normal human footstep now feels like thunder splitting his skull. Once the person leaves, Paul notices the aquarium fish is gone, and something about that small loss genuinely devastates him. By August 2nd, Paul has shrunk to a size where even mosquitoes look like giants flying overhead. Watching one lead him to a mosquito net on the basement window, he realizes it might be his way out. He scales a wooden shelf leg, catches his breath, and leaps onto the stone wall cladding, where the gaps between stones now look like entire mountain roads to him. As night falls he reaches the boiler and stumbles straight into the spider's web, and this time it's not just bigger, it's monstrous. Paul is so terrified he loses control of his own body and braces for death, but at the final second the spider backs away, either unable to see him clearly through its damaged eye or, somehow, choosing mercy. Paul reaches the mosquito net but is still too large to fit through, forcing him to wait through the night to shrink further. On the morning of August 7th, an ant gently brushes against his leg, waking him just as the massive spider closes in one more time. But Paul has shrunk just enough now, and he slips clean through the mesh while the spider, too big to follow, is left behind entirely. For the first time, Paul steps into the outside world, and honestly the scale of danger out there should be terrifying, but instead he walks freely along the ground, pauses at a single drop of water, and watches a white butterfly drift past him. In a quiet internal moment he tells himself he has finally left the cage and isn't afraid of anything anymore. As the butterfly disappears into the sky, Paul looks up at the stars and thinks about his daughter, and somewhere else entirely, Mia is looking up at that same night sky too. Before you click off, just give me 30 seconds. Billionz family, here's what this film taught me that I'll never forget. Paul spent months refusing to accept what was happening to him, insisting he was fine, insisting he didn't need help. And that refusal cost him his house, his safety, and almost his family's belief that he was even still alive. The moment he stopped fighting his reality was the exact moment he actually started surviving it. So here's what I need you to carry with you today. You cannot outstubborn a problem that's already changing your life. Accepting what's real isn't weakness, it's the first step toward actually overcoming it. Stop fighting what you can't control and start adapting to what you can. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Also tell us your thoughts in the comment below. Thank you for staying with me till the end. See you in the next one.